GLC is now offering a free audio stream of our 24/7 broadcast that we're calling GLC Radio, an online radio station that broadcasts our round-the-clock audio stream on a variety of platforms. GLC Radio gives you the ability to listen to GLC virtually anywhere, through your home or office computer, or on the go with a mobile device. You can access GLC Radio through our website or by searching for God's Learning Channel through iTunes Internet Radio, TuneInRadio.com, or on Shoutcast.com. Explore various GLC Radio-enabled mobile apps by visiting our website at glc.us.com/listen/GLC Radio. GLC Radio, your free connection to GLC anywhere, anytime.
Well, welcome to Midweek Update.
It is. It's already Wednesday. Unbelievable.
15th. Halfway through the month.
Of July.
And it just started.
Which means we're well on our way into the second half of 2015. Unbelievable.
That's right.
Well, we want to take time to thank you partners who are responding to our request for financial help. Thank you. And thank you for those who are going to be giving.
That's right.
Amen.
That's right.
Okay, where are we going, ladies?
I don't know.
Well, the letter is very long today. And I think Dad would like to have you read it for him.
Please.
Really?
Please.
It's a good letter, but it is long.
Well, it's from one of our partners here in Odessa.
Yes, it is.
John.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, Dear GLC, which is Al Tommy and Miss Amy, that would be me. Just wanted to drop a line and say hello and thank you folks again for all the great programming you have at GLC that cannot be found anywhere else that I'm aware of. I looked around my study today and realized how fortunate I was to have found all the people and organizations that I have through GLC. Many ministries have both strengthened and encouraged me in recent years. This is not to mention the constant wonderful devotionals offered by Mrs. Cooper on a weekly basis that would make a lot of pastors envious. This leads me to a perplexing question that I have been constantly asked by many people in recent weeks and months. Here's the question. Should I or shouldn't I just watch GLC and learn from them instead of going to a church where I'm not really wanted anymore and just give my tithe to GLC since that's what you do, John? Many people know that I was a non-denominational teacher here locally at various places who was basically dismissed due to a reluctance on my part to teach doctrine I was not in agreement with.
Wow.
Although there is no record of me ever criticizing the church or their leadership, either publicly or privately. And I have no intention of doing so as it does not benefit anyone. Amen, John.
Yes.
But the plain truth is, we all believe what we believe, and that is what makes us who we are if we practice and preach what we believe. You can't separate the two. However, we all need the fellowship of other believers and the encouragement and teaching that this fellowship brings. Iron sharpens iron. So I want to publicly encourage people to pray about this and seek God's will concerning this in their life. Christ loves the church, but we don't go to church, folks. We are the church. Daily prayer, daily reading of the Word, giving of your tithes and offerings, and encouraging others in the faith through work and testimony are all things that we need to be doing in love every day of our lives. This last days phenomenon, known as the Messianic movement, is about to erupt as more and more people discover the truth about their Jewish roots, their Jewish Messiah, the land of Israel, the Scriptures, and the God of Israel. Replacement theology is being exposed for what it is, and that's a good thing. But let's remember that a soft answer turns away wrath, and love covers a multitude of sin. Whatever we do, let's do it in love and to glorify Yeshua the Messiah, not ourselves. And I would encourage people to write in and ask the learned men of the Shepherd's Heart program their opinion of some of these things, these questions. That's what those guys are there for. and they're trained and capable of answering a lot of these questions. Thank you again, GLC, for allowing me to talk about this. Your friend in Yeshua always. Shalom, John of Odessa, Texas.
Thank you, John. What a letter.
It's a great letter.
It
Yeah.
is a great letter. And good advice, too, John.
Well, it's
Thank you.
encouraging, too,
It is
to everybody.
You know, the thing is that John's advice is correct. You really need to pray about what the Lord wants you to do. And that's in absolutely everything, but especially when it comes to
Fellowship.
the fellowship and the people that God wants you around. You know what? They might not be ministering to you. You might be ministering to them.
Yep.
And I love what John says. The soft answer turns away wrath. You know, everything that we do, you know what, people? We can have found truth and just have it in our heads. The fruit that we bear is going to bear out who's going to listen to what we have to say. You know?
Yeah. And it truly shows what's in your heart.
It truly shows what's in your heart. You know, it doesn't do any good to get angry at anyone for not believing what you believe.
Well, right.
It doesn't because, you know, even like the Lord himself blinded the eyes of the Jewish people in part only for the sake of the Gentiles concerning Messiah. Hello. Lots of people's eyes are blinded, and all you can do is pray for them. Watch your fruit, watch your fruit, watch your fruit.
That's right.
Okay. Do you have a devotion?
I do. And
One of those wonderful devotions that
Yes,
John says
it
that most
is.
pastors would be envious of?
All they got to do is look online and find some of these wonderful ministries. This is from Bill Wilson of the Daily Jot, and it's called Courage. He says, with the Supreme Court redefining marriage and the president signing a prophetic nuclear defining deal with Iran, and a myriad of other priority problems our poor leadership has created over the past 10 years, the outlook for America is not bright. Leadership has turned away from common sense, and it seems that the craziest anti-God ideas are in full swing to be implemented. But there's no time for the weak-hearted or for those who call themselves Christians to disengage and throw in the towel. It seems we have been doing that since the 1960s, and it hasn't worked. Christ is the answer to this dark and dying world, and you are his vessel. Think about that. You have a calling, and much bad doctrine has been taught about this. The Holy Scriptures say in Romans 8:28 that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. It's not your purpose, it's his purpose. Romans 11:29 says that the gifts and calling of God are unchangeable. So when people are saying that you have to find your calling, it's really understanding that you are called not according to our works, but according to his own purpose. 2 Timothy 1:9. Christ is our example. He is the way, the truth, and the life. He showed us how to engage according to his purpose. It takes courage to conduct Christ's purpose in this world, in this country today. Psalm 31:24 says, be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart, all you that hope in the Lord. As Christians, our hope is in the Lord. We are to be ever watching for his return. As Galatians 6:9 says, and let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. And Jesus promises in Matthew 10:22, and you shall be hated of all men for my name's sake, but he that endures to the end shall be saved. We as Christians are not to stand by and allow evil to advance just because we have read the end of the book and we win. We're not to be overcome with evil, but to overcome evil with good. The Lord says to be of good courage and that his gifts will never change. You are equipped. 2 Timothy 1:7 says, For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. We're reminded that it is not easy in 2 Corinthians 4, 8, and 9. We are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. We're perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Cast down, but not destroyed. Verse 6 tells us, For God who commanded the light to shine out of darkness has shined in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. We should not fear man. Man cannot take our soul. So we need to take heart during these times. Have courage. Put on the whole armor of God and speak boldly as we ought to speak. And then, having done all to stand, stand.
Amen.
That was great.
It was.
You know, I'm listening to you quote that scripture, and it says, we are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. Okay, so when you hit that one, the perplexed, I was like, how many of us, when we are walking through something, and remember, God allows us all to walk through different challenges in order to draw us closer to Him. That's what it's all about. And so we are perplexed. It's like, God, what are you doing? I wanted to laugh out loud when you read that. That's just funny, because we do that a lot. It's like, you know, we really want to hear the Lord, and it's like, okay, Lord,
What?
we think we're hearing you, you know? You know, I want to share with you, Danya Greenberg, you saw her on Light of the Southwest last night. She was actually here for 3 days. She came in Sunday night. She left this morning, Wednesday morning. So we got to spend time with Danya, just getting to know her. And when I took her to the airport this morning, she made the comment that normally when she travels, it's very, very stressful. And she's going home. She is arriving at home tonight about 4:45, going straight to the office. She had work to do tonight, and then she's got to repack, go to bed, get up in the morning, and she's flying out.
Wow.
You know, I mean, so she's headed right into stress. But traveling always distresses her. You know, it's just a lot on her. And she said, it was just wonderful being here. She felt so refreshed and so at peace.
Well, good.
And I'm just like, wow, that's
there
amazing.
was a whirlwind at our house.
It's a constant whirlwind. You know, it has just been a whirlwind the whole time, you know. But
I'm glad there was peace in the midst of the storm.
Exactly. So anyway, that's good. You know, Scott and Teresa Johnson from Hamiflad over in Jerusalem, they were here with us for a week.
They said the same thing.
And they said the same thing. And it's like, you know, I wish everybody could come and be on the set to experience what happens in this studio. Because it never fails. People will be real nervous. And I'm like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, really.
You know, God always shows up. The Spirit just kind of drops onto the set, and the cameras just go away. And everybody's always really amazed at the amount of shalom that just infiltrates the place, you know? It's really awesome.
Yeah. Well, that's my constant prayer for this place, that His Spirit abide here.
Amen.
It's like a vice president I worked for in corporate life. I'd go in to have a meeting with him. His first words to me would be, no yeah buts.
Yeah, but.
No yeah but. Just
Yeah,
give me
but.
the facts. And that's the way we try to be around here. No yeah buts at our house.
Yeah, but.
But
You know, one of the other things about this devotion that you chose today that I really wanted to stress to people, because it talks about God equipping us. Now, see, so many of us think that God will call us. We really want God to call us. It takes stepping out in faith.
It does. Absolutely.
To answer His call, because you know what? You actually have to trust. that he will completely equip you for whatever he calls you to do.
Mm-hmm.
And within that, at the same time, you're realizing that it's not about my purpose, Lord. It's about your purpose in this.
Amen.
You have to keep that in mind. And then at the same time, you have to realize that he wants to equip you to accomplish his purpose. And it's not about how worthy any of us are.
That's right. Absolutely.
Because none of us are worthy. It's only the blood of Yeshua that has made us worthy at all.
That's right.
You know, we're just nothing. So, you know, it becomes a matter of, Lord, you know what? There's no reason that you wouldn't equip me because you don't see me in a sinful state.
That's right.
You see me as bought by your blood,
Yep.
willing
right.
to work for you.
That's right.
You will withhold nothing.
That's
So
right.
it ultimately comes down to our own being settled in the fact that we really have been redeemed. That's what it's all about.
Overcoming fear.
Have we really been redeemed or not? Okay, well, this first article looks like it comes from ICEJ News. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu expressed grim determination Wednesday that the deal announced on Tuesday in Vienna regarding Iran's renegade nuclear program is not the last word, adding that there was still a chance to stop the deal by lobbying the U.S. Congress. He said, "We brought the Iranian issue to the attention of world public opinion. If it weren't for Israel's efforts, Iran would have gained possession of a nuclear weapon a long time ago. We're not bound by this agreement, and we will continue to oppose it. This agreement is bad on all counts. When we read the agreement, the picture becomes even bleaker because we discover more absurd things in it." Criticizing Western countries for being willing to accept tyrannical regimes, he warned, "This is different than 1938, because back then there was no precedent. Now there is. And then we didn't have a country. Now we do."
Defense Minister Moshe Bogi Ya'alon echoed Netanyahu's sentiments in his own comments Tuesday, saying Iran arrived at the negotiating table in a weak position and has emerged victorious. Instead of fighting terror with all its might, the free world has granted legitimacy to Iran's hateful, murderous ways. This agreement is a tragedy for all who aspire for regional stability and fear a nuclear Iran. The world's leading exporter of terror, maliciously involved in every angle of the Middle East conflict, either directly or indirectly through its emissaries, undermining moderate Arab regimes, battling Israel, and harming Western interests in this region. This evil regime employs terror, funds terror, arms terror, and disseminates terror across the world. The agreement signed with Iran will only serve to further support this bloody enterprise. With the implementation of the agreement and lifting of sanctions, massive funds will be funneled into the Iranian terror accounts, boosting its evil operations.
Prime Minister Ya'alon, no, not Prime Minister, Defense Minister Ya'alon continued, given its lack of moral restraints and extremist makeup, the Iranian regime is now in a stronger position to accelerate its regional and global threat through additional avenues, including its efforts to develop long-range missiles targeted far beyond the Middle East. This agreement is bad. It rewards deceit, terror, and warmongering. The mere thought of accepting the chief terrorist regime back into the family of nations is kind of, beyond belief. Yeah. He didn't say kind of, I added that.
Yep.
And this is a news in brief from ICEJ, reactions around the world. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani gave a televised speech shortly after Tuesday's announcement that a deal had been reached regarding the Islamic Republic's renegade nuclear program. Declaring his belief that the agreement represented an opportunity for Iran and the rest of the world to make progress on a range of issues, He cautioned that Israel's reaction to the deal put such progress in jeopardy. No one can say Iran surrendered, Rouhani said. The deal is a legal, technical, and political victory for Iran, he said. It's an achievement that Iran won't be called a world threat anymore.
Oh my goodness. The president of Iran is saying, hey, we're not going to be called a world threat anymore.
Right.
I also saw something today about it had been, I believe it was actually John Kerry who said this. You know, Iran has been declaring their hatred for America for 35 years, and maybe this will change things. I'm sure it will.
Sure it will.
Leaders of the European Union, NATO, and several individual European governments reacted positively to the announcement Tuesday about the deal regarding Iran's renegade nuclear program. Many officials said they hoped the deal was the beginning of a new era of cooperation between Iran and the West, while sounding a cautious note that Iran would need to fulfill its obligations under the agreement in order for that to occur. However, some European diplomats went as far as to scold Israel for objecting to the agreement, with some analysts speculating that a desire to forge closer ties with Tehran would prompt Western nations to distance themselves, from Israel.
Sure. Leaders in the worldwide Jewish diaspora reacted to Tuesday's announcement of a deal to address Iran's renegade nuclear program with a mixture of alarm and anger, as well as pockets of confusion and optimism. European Jewish Congress President Moshe Kantor said on almost all of the major sticking points, Iran appears to have come out stronger, and this deal will prove to be a prize for radicalism and seen as a Western surrender. If you act like the neighborhood bully, it pays off. Echoing Kantor's sentiments, several Jewish leaders in the Western democracies issued calls for review of the deal by their elected officials.
Arab governments around the Middle East issued cautious reactions Tuesday to news of a deal regarding Iran's renegade nuclear program. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad issued a jubilant statement indicating his hope that his sponsor would soon be able to spare more cash to support him and allied Shiite terror militias such as Hezbollah. His opponents among the Sunni rebel factions expressed worry about this development. Elsewhere, the government of Saudi Arabia issued a statement via official media that it has warned Iran not to use an infusion of cash from lifted sanctions to fuel regional turmoil. Military analysts have predicted a surge in the already massive spike in orders of weapons and military equipment by Gulf Arab states in response to the agreement.
It's going to be a rush for arms now all over the place. This is a really interesting story coming from The Independent in England. A Jewish peer who fled occupied Austria as a child is funding the rescue of up to 2,000 Christians from Syria and Iraq as a way of showing his gratitude to the religion whose members saved him from the Nazis. Mm-hmm. Lord Weidenfeld said he has a debt to repay to Christians fleeing ISIS because the Quakers and the Plymouth Brethren fed and clothed him and helped him reach Britain in 1938.
The publisher is spearheading Weidenfeld's Safe Havens Fund, which last week supported the flight of 150 Syrian Christians to Poland on a privately chartered plane to allow them to seek refuge, making them the first beneficiaries of the resettlement project. Having arrived in Britain on a train a year before the start of the Second World War with just a few shillings to his name, Lord Weidenfeld went on to establish the Weidenfeld and Nicholson publishing business a decade later. He was made a life peer in 1976.
The 95-year-old told the Times, "I had a debt to repay. It applies to so many young people who were on the Kinder transports. It was Quakers and other Christian denominations who brought those children to England. It was a very high-minded operation, and we Jews should also be thankful and do something for the endangered Christians." The fund aims to offer 12 to 18 months of paid support to the refugees.
But the project has run into criticism for its exclusion of Muslims who have also been forced from their homes by ISIS for fear of murder, enslavement, or torture. Countries, including the U.S., have declined to participate in the scheme, which has the support of the Syrian regime of Bashar al-Assad. Christians, as well as Yazidis, Druze, and Shia Muslims, are being persecuted by the terror group Islamic State, which controls areas of Syria and Iraq.
The Christian populations of both countries have fallen precipitously in the past decade, however, and Lord Wadenfeld defended the project's narrow focus. He said, "I can't save the world, but there is a very specific possibility on the Christian side. Let others do what they like for the Muslims." He added that he hoped to replicate the work done by the likes of the late Sir Nicholas Winton, who helped to organize kinder transport trains that saved more than 10,000 Jewish children from the Nazis. Sir Nicholas died on 1st of July.
You know, that's really, he is paying back the people who helped him.
Yeah.
You know, this is one of the things, I believe Danya and I talked about this a little bit on the program that we did, was how important it is that Christians don't look like Jewish people.
Yes.
Because of anti-Semitism that's always constantly raising its head.
Yes.
And when they come for them, then the Christians will survive and can help them. So it's important that there's a differentiation. So how wonderful that Christians help save all of these children, all these Jewish children. Now one of them grows up, and he's extending his hand to do the same thing for them.
That's wonderful.
Payback.
Here's good news from Texas Governor Greg Abbott. He issued a blunt warning this week to escape Mexican drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, explaining what would happen to him if he entered the Lone Star State. If he or any other cartel member thinks about trying to come into Texas, we've got a prison cell waiting for them, Abbott told Newsmax.
Abbott added that Guzman is an immense danger to the U.S. and said that many are frustrated because he should have been extradited so American officials had control of him. He should be in a U.S. prison for the rest of his life, Abbott said. That was actually Governor Abbott on screen a minute ago. Guzman escaped from a maximum security prison Saturday for the second time.
Earlier, Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump contended that the escape of the Mexican drug lord proved the U.S. needs to immediately secure the southern border. After doing so, an account purporting to belong to Guzman issued a threatening message to Trump.
During his Monday interview, Governor Abbott said that the U.S. has a broken immigration system that is resulting in people tragically losing their lives. Something needs to be done about it, he said, and Texas has gotten tired of Washington, D.C. not doing its job, which is why, as governor in my first term, we passed the most sweeping and toughest border security law any state has ever passed. Abbott said that Texas is doing the federal government's job, adding that residents of the state expect the federal government to pay for what Texas is having to do to protect us. But you know what? I love living in Texas.
Amen.
I do, you know. I love
Amen.
New Mexico, but you know what? I love Texas. Pretty much I've only lived in those two states.
It's not the scenery.
Well, I don't know. Mom says it's not the scenery, but you know what? It's amazing how green it is here. We have had so much wonderful, wonderful rain.
Yeah.
And the purple sage is just blooming everywhere.
It is.
And
It's gorgeous.
it is. It is quite gorgeous. So
Weeds in the driveway.
and the weeds are growing
And
very well.
blooming.
Yeah. And making baby weeds. And so anyway.
But we have bouquets all along the driveway, little yellow bouquets.
Yeah.
So we thank the Lord for the beautiful flowers, and we thank you for being our partners.
We love you. We will see you again Friday. Thank you for joining us.